Florida, August 1992. Hurricane Andrew is tearing the coast apart. A private saltwater tank in Biscayne Bay shatters. 6 lionfish, striped and venomous, tumble into the open ocean. Nobody sees it happen. Nobody documents it. Nobody imagines what comes next. 30 years later, those 6 fish and their descendants cover the Caribbean. They have colonized the Bahamas, Cuba, Belize, the Gulf of Mexico. They have no natural predators in these waters. On some reefs, a single lionfish now eats through 20 juvenile fish in under an hour. Fishery scientists tracking the invasion have measured collapses of native reef fish populations by 70, 80, in some cases 90%. 6 fish, 1 broken tank, an entire sea rewritten. How does that happen? Because the sea hides machinery we barely understand. Look at the shallow seabed off southern Australia. A flat, kite-shaped animal is buried under a thin layer of sand. A small fish drifts past, feeding on scraps. The water flashes. The prey stiffens mid-swim, convulses, and stops moving. According to decades of marine biology field research, much of it filmed in situ only in the last 20 years, what just killed that fish was a 200-volt electrical discharge released directly into the water. A current of roughly 50 amps. That is the same voltage that runs a refrigerator, a hairdryer, a washing machine. And this animal produces it inside its own body, on demand at will. Its name is the electric numbfish. It is a small member of the ray family, harmless in appearance, resting on the seafloor. And what it just did is a hunting technique so precise that in some recorded strikes the numbfish paralyzes not one prey animal, but 2 at the same time, then swallows one and spits the other back out, unable to fit both inside its mouth. The second fish drifts down through the water, still twitching, already dead. The mechanism is a stack of specialized cells inside the numbfish's body, arranged like tiny biological batteries. Researchers believe symbiotic bacteria play a role in maintaining the charge, though the full pathway is still not perfectly understood. Each individual cell holds a tiny voltage. Stacked in the hundreds of thousands, they release together. The water carries the current outward like sound from a bell. If you were a small fish swimming past, you would feel nothing until you felt everything. The numbfish uses this trick for hunting. Its larger cousins, the marbled and torpedo rays, use it for defense. And in warmer, shallower water, an even smaller animal, the electric flame scallop, uses pulses of current and internal reflectors to fake the appearance of danger, warding off predators without ever attacking a single one. None of these animals plug into anything. They are the plug. Human industry stumbled into electricity in the 18th century. These creatures have been running the same trick for tens of millions of years. And this is only the first door onto how strange the ocean actually gets. Consider what comes next. There are fish here that hunt not by chasing prey, but by fishing for it, using a rod grown directly from their own forehead. There are colonies of animals so long, so translucent, so soft, that they read as one continuous body, but are actually hundreds of individuals stitched into a single, deadly organism. There are sharks that walk on their fins across the seafloor, squid that devour each other alive as they gather to mate. Fish so venomous a single misstep on a shallow beach can drop a grown adult into cardiac distress inside an hour. And a blubbery, snout grazer that ancient sailors reportedly mistook in the fog and salt spray for a mermaid. This is the story of what the ocean built when it had 4 billion years and no witnesses. Of animals that evolved for a world without human logic, and that keeps surfacing to remind us that our imagination is not the ceiling of what is possible. If you find yourself pausing to look twice at what you are about to see, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this kind of long-form ocean investigation deserves to reach the people who genuinely love this stuff. We begin with the animal that turned evolution's cruelest joke into a hunting weapon, the fish that grew a fishing rod on its own head. Papua New Guinea, a shallow reef 30 feet down. The water is warm and thick with sediment. On a coral outcrop, something that looks like a lump of pink sponge is doing nothing. It has been doing nothing for hours. If you swam past it, you would not register it as an animal. That is the point. The lump is a frogfish. It is one of the strangest predators the ocean has ever produced, and quite possibly one of the ugliest. Its body is covered in fleshy nodules, warts, and folds that mimic the exact texture of sponge, coral, or algae. Some individuals are hairy. Some are pinkish. Some look like a rotting mango. Almost none of them look like a fish. Frogfish have essentially given up on swimming. Their fins have restructured themselves into stubby, muscular limbs that end in what can only be described as toes. They walk, slowly, awkwardly, across the reef, one small step at a time, like a creature that misplaced its evolutionary manual. They have no shell, no spines, no armor, no speed, and yet, on the reefs where they live, they sit near the top of the food chain, because of what is growing out of their forehead. Every frogfish carries, on the front of its head, a modified dorsal spine that scientists call the elysium. It is a long, flexible rod. At the tip of the rod is a lure, the esca, which the fish can wave, twitch, and animate. In some species, the lure resembles a small shrimp. In others, it looks like a fat, juicy worm. In one Indonesian variant, the lure has evolved to look like a tiny fish, complete with a shape suggesting eyes and fins. The frogfish is fishing, not metaphorically, literally. This is a fish that grew on its own head, a fishing rod that it uses to catch other fish. The lure dangles, the lure wriggles, and when a smaller predator arrives to eat what it thinks is easy prey, the frogfish's mouth opens. What happens next is one of the fastest movements in the animal kingdom. Feeding strikes by frogfish have been measured at roughly 6 milliseconds. That is on the order of 100 times faster than a human eye blink. The mouth expands to about 12 times its resting volume in that split second. Water rushes in, and the prey rushes with it. By the time the target realizes anything is wrong, it is inside the frogfish's stomach, still alive. Divers who have filmed frogfish feeding often say the same thing when they review the footage. They cannot see the strike happen. Only slow-motion playback reveals it. There is a species, the sargassum frogfish, that has abandoned a reef entirely and lives among floating mats of sargassum weed on the open ocean surface. Its camouflage is so precise that if you scooped up a handful of weed and did not know what you were looking for, you would drop the frogfish back into the sea without ever suspecting it was there. The sargassum frogfish hunts the smaller fish that shelter inside the weed. Same trick, same lure, same explosive strike. And when researchers have kept frogfish in aquariums and dropped bright lights near the tank, the fish have exploited the situation ruthlessly. Small fish drawn to the light get eaten within minutes. Divers have filmed frogfish with stomachs so distended after feeding frenzy that you can see the outlines of prey animals still twitching under the skin. This is not an intelligent hunter. This is not a fast hunter. This is an animal that has spent millions of years becoming so good at looking like something that is not itself, and at grasping opportunity when it arrives, that the sea has effectively given up on defending against it. Which raises a question the ocean will keep asking through the rest of this story. What if being still is more dangerous than being fast? What if patience and disguise and one well-timed movement can outperform speed, teeth, and armor combined? Because the next animal we meet has taken that idea even further. It does not need a rod. It does not chase. It walks slowly across the reef, opens the top of its head like a plastic bag, and vacuums up everything it finds. Return to Papua New Guinea. Same reef, different animal. Something small is crawling across the seafloor, and if you were the coral it is crossing, you would have no idea what was coming. From above, it looks vaguely like a large soft slug with a fringe at one end. Almost transparent, almost decorative. Then the fringe opens. The top of the animal's head unfolds into a wide, clear membrane, roughly the diameter of a coin, ringed with fine sensory hairs. It looks for a second like someone has opened a plastic supermarket bag underwater and held it against the current. This is the Malibe nudibranch, and what you are watching is dinner. The Malibe is a sea slug. Nudibranch, the family it belongs to, are already among the most freakish animals in the sea. Hundreds of species, each with a different color scheme, most of them soft-bodied, boneless, defenseless. But the Malibe is stranger than any of them because of what it does with that transparent hood. It hovers. The Malibe cannot chase anything. It has no teeth. It has no speed. Instead, it walks slowly across the reef, and every few seconds it sweeps its expanded head over the substrate. The hairs on the rim of the hood function almost exactly like the brushes on a household vacuum cleaner, sensing anything alive and small enough to swallow. When the hood detects prey, a tiny crustacean, a fish larva, a fragment of plankton, it clamps shut. Everything inside is trapped. The prey is then drawn through the transparent hood into the stomach. Because the animal is see-through, you can watch it happen. Divers who have filmed Malibe eating describe the effect as gruesome and beautiful at the same time. A fish larva twitching inside a clear membrane, being slowly digested while you can see every stage of the process. There is one further detail that even people who keep Malib in reef aquariums have noticed. Their tank room smells like fruit. Specifically, a lot of Malib keepers report that whenever the sea slug is active, the room takes on a faint, sweet, almost tropical aroma, sometimes compared to watermelon, sometimes to overripe pineapple. It took biologists years to figure out what was happening. The Malib was producing a chemical compound and releasing it into the water. Predators taste it and refuse to bite. In the tank, it evaporates through the surface and drifts through the room like a bad air freshener. An animal that hunts by opening a bag on its head and defends itself by smelling like fruit. If you had described this creature to a Victorian naturalist, they would have accused you of hallucinating. If you are enjoying this so far, tapping the like button genuinely helps the channel. It signals to the algorithm that people want more long-form investigations into what lives in the ocean, not 5-minute clickbait about mermaids. Now, the Malib is not the only creature on this reef banking its entire survival on how it looks. Because underneath all the freak biology, one thing keeps coming up. In an environment where every animal is trying to eat every other animal, being invisible is worth more than being armed. The ocean turned out to be the most sophisticated designer of camouflage in the natural world. And it did not stop at coloration. Off the southern coast of Australia, in cold, kelp-heavy water, a small animal drifts among the fronds. It looks like a piece of the kelp itself. It moves like the kelp. When the kelp sways, it sways. When the kelp stills, it stills. Only when the water clears and the light changes do you realize the piece of kelp has an eye. This is the leafy sea dragon, and is one of the most elaborate acts of biological disguise ever documented. Every part of its body has grown into leafy, ribbon-like extensions that mimic the seaweed around it with almost obsessive precision. The extensions do not function for swimming. They are decoration. They exist so that when a hungry predator scans the kelp bed for movement, its brain reads leaf. We will stay with the sea dragon in the next block because the story of how something this fragile survives and how humans nearly destroyed it opens onto something ugly. But first, hold that image. A creature that looks so much like a plant that even trained divers, hunting for it specifically, can spend an entire dive within a meter of one and never see. The leafy sea dragon exists in a very specific window of the world. It lives only along the southern coast of Australia. Cold water, dense kelp, sheltered bays. Outside of that narrow band, it does not exist and never has. This limited range is the reason its camouflage is so exquisitely tuned. It evolved to hide inside one specific kind of forest and does not need to hide from anything else. But the range that makes it beautiful also makes it fragile. For decades, the sea dragon has been protected under Australian law. Capturing one in the wild is illegal. Keeping one without a license is illegal. And yet, if you sit down at your computer and type leafy sea dragon for sale into a search engine, you get roughly 18 million results. A great many of those results are private aquarium collectors around the world offering to buy or trade. To date, no captive breeding program for leafy sea dragons has succeeded at commercial scale. Every wild-caught specimen represents an animal removed from a population that is already small. It is a strange, ugly footnote inside a beautiful story. The same evolutionary artistry that made this animal one of the most photographed creatures in marine biology has also turned it into a collector's item. The disguise that was supposed to save its life from cuttlefish and reef predators cannot save it from a shipping container heading to a private tank in Europe. Push west into warmer water, and we find the same evolutionary principle deployed by an animal on the opposite end of the size and menace scale. Meet the wobbegong. The wobbegong is a shark, not a small shark. Some species reach lengths of 3 meters. And yet almost nobody who does not dive professionally has ever seen one, because a resting wobbegong is functionally invisible. Its body is flat, mottled, and patterned in browns, tans, and creams that match the coral rubble it lies on. Its mouth is fringed with dozens of small, fleshy appendages, dermal lobes, that break up the outline of its head and mimic the frilly algae growing on the reef. From above, the wobbegong reads as a piece of the seafloor with texture. This is also, by the way, quiet biological proof that a shark does not need to keep swimming to breathe. That popular idea is only true of certain fast-swimming pelagic species. The wobbegong lies still on the reef for hours, pumping water across its gills the way a lot of bottom-dwelling sharks do, waiting. When a fish gets too close, the wobbegong strikes upward. The lobes around its mouth double as sensors. The teeth do the rest. There is a related predator that has taken this same trick even further in warmer temperate waters. It bears the least appropriate name in the shark family. It is called the angel shark. The angel shark buries itself entirely under the sand until only a faint outline of its wing-like body remains visible from above. A school of small fish drifts across the seabed, feeding on scraps oblivious. The angel shark does not move. It waits until the school passes directly above. Then, the strike. Measurements taken from high-speed video footage put the angel shark's ambush at around 1/40th of a second. Roughly 8/100ths of a second from stillness to closed jaws. If you were watching in real time, you would not see it. The sand would explode, the school would scatter, and one fish would simply be gone. The angel shark keeps its head hidden, and its ambush cool. It is the least angelic member of the family. There's a lesson wrapping itself around the throat of this section of the story. Look at what these three animals have in common. A leafy dragon that looks like a plant. A wobbegong shark that looks like coral rubble. An angel shark that looks like sand. None of them are related. None of them evolved together. They live in different oceans at different depths, hunting different prey, dodging different predators. And yet, given 400 million years, the sea reached independently, over and over, for the same solution. Do not be seen. If everything else is trying to eat you, or you are trying to eat everything else, the winning move, for a stunning variety of body plans, is to stop being visible. That is one branch of the ocean's answer to Egyptian coast, Red Sea. Late afternoon. A group of divers is working their way across a shallow reef flat, 5 feet deep, close enough to shore that snorkelers wade out from the beach without thinking twice about it. The water is clear. The sand is pale. There is very little to see. That is the danger. Underneath the sand, invisible against the substrate, is a stonefish. Its official name is Synancia. It is short, squat, and covered in mottled lumps that read exactly like the surrounding coral rubble. When it lies flat, camouflaged on the seabed, no diver in the world can spot it without touching it first. Which is exactly the problem. Because along the top of the stonefish's back run 13 dorsal spines. And inside each spine is a small sac of venom. If a swimmer steps on a stonefish, and this happens in recorded cases every year, in every ocean where the animal lives, the spines drive upward through the sole of the foot. Body weight forces venom out of the sac and directly into human tissue. The pain has been described by survivors as the worst physical sensation of their lives. Beyond that, the venom can trigger cardiovascular collapse, muscle paralysis, tissue necrosis, and, in untreated cases, death. Antivenom exists. Is manufactured in Australia. In a country without a domestic supply, treatment can be catastrophic. Stonefish are ambush hunters. They do not use their venom offensively. The venom is entirely defensive. The spines exist so that a shark, a moray eel, or an unlucky human never gets a second chance to try to eat one. And crucially, they never move. Divers have filmed tiny hermit crabs scurrying directly across the face of a stonefish and pipefish curling across its back, completely unaware that the rock underneath them is a live animal. The stonefish does not react. Movement would betray it. Movement would waste an ambush. Everything about this creature's evolution has trained it to sit, look wrong, and wait. Which brings us to the venom cabinet's most photogenic resident, and its most disturbing recent chapter, the lionfish. Lionfish are almost impossibly beautiful. Vertical stripes of maroon and cream. Long, feathery pectoral fins that fan out like a Victorian evening gown. 18 venomous spines running along the back and belly, glowing faintly under a diver's torch. They look like a fish designed by someone who had never seen fish and thought they should look more dramatic. Their venom is not lethal to healthy adults in most cases. It causes intense pain, headaches, vomiting, breathing difficulty. Enough to ruin a vacation. Not usually enough to kill. In their native range, the Indo-Pacific, the lionfish is a sedate, mid-level predator. It exists in balance with the reefs and other predators. Local groupers, moray eels, and sharks have evolved alongside it, and they know what a lionfish is. Then, in 1992, Hurricane Andrew put 6 lionfish into the wrong ocean. We opened this investigation with that fact, and we come back to it here because you have to understand what actually happened next. In the Caribbean, and along the American southeast coast, lionfish had no predators. Nothing recognized them. Nothing knew to avoid the spines. Nothing had co-evolved to eat them. The lionfish began breeding. A single female can release up to 2 million eggs per year. Within a decade, populations exploded. Within 2 decades, they had colonized nearly every reef system from North Carolina to Colombia. In some Bahamian sites, biologists have counted more than 1 lionfish per square meter of reef. They eat native juveniles. They eat wrasses, damselfish, small groupers, parrotfish. They eat the herbivores that keep coral reefs from being smothered by algae. The knock-on effects, the collapse of reef structure, the shift of an entire ecosystem, are still being measured. Governments have tried to fight back. In the Caribbean, entire cottage industries have grown up around spearing lionfish. Divers are paid per kill. If you ask a person on the street to draw a shark, they will draw the same animal. Sleek body, sharp dorsal fin, triangular head, rows of visible teeth, something halfway between a torpedo and a nightmare. That drawing exists because one specific branch of the shark family, the requiem sharks and their relatives, dominates popular culture. The great white, the tiger shark, the bull shark. Those are what we think about when we think about sharks. The shark family is enormous, and most of it does not look anything like the drawing. Take the hammerhead. Every shark carries specialized sensors called ampullae of Lorenzini, which detect the tiny electrical signals given off by living tissue in the water. It is how a shark finds a stingray buried under sand or a fish concealed in a coral crevice. The electrical field of a beating heart is impossible to hide. The hammerhead uniquely has spread those sensors across a wide, flattened head that extends outward from its body like a horizontal wing. Its eyes sit on the tips. Some biologists argue the hammerhead is not a primitive throwback, but one of the most advanced sharks alive. The wide head gives it a wider electrical sweep, better depth perception through parallax, and more effective ambushing of prey buried on the seabed. Millions of years ago, one shark decided the standard head was insufficient. This is the result. Then, at the opposite end of a size spectrum, the basking shark. The basking shark is the second largest fish in the ocean. Adults reach lengths of up to 10 meters. They cruise through open water with their enormous mouths held wide open, and if you saw one coming toward you at depth, without knowing what it was, you would panic. You would be wrong too. The basking shark does not eat meat. It filters plankton out of the water, copepods, krill, small fish larvae, the same food source that sustains many whale species. It has evolved from the same ancestor as the great white and taken almost the opposite direction. Above the basking shark, near the surface, sometimes cuts one of the strangest silhouettes in the ocean. The thresher shark carries a tail as long as its body. It uses the tail as a whip. High-speed footage over the past 2 decades has confirmed what fishermen suspected for centuries. Threshers stun small schooling fish by lashing the tail through the water at velocities powerful enough to knock prey unconscious. Then they circle back and swallow. We still cannot fully explain why evolution gave the thresher a tail that long. And then in shallower and stranger territory, an animal that biologists have started calling the walking shark. Officially, its name is the epaulette shark. It is small. It lives in tidal pools and shallow reef flats across Papua New Guinea and northern Australia. It hunts almost exclusively at night. And when the tide goes out and reef pools become isolated, oxygen-starved puddles, the epaulette shark does something extraordinary. It uses its fins as legs. The epaulette shark walks across exposed reef, in air, from one pool to another. It can survive out of water for over an hour by slowing its metabolism and tolerating oxygen levels that would kill almost any other fish. Its fins have adapted so specifically to walking that they now function more like limbs than propulsion. Scientists filming this behavior have described it as watching evolution happen live. Something in the shape of a fish is starting to reach onto land, in real time, in front of us. It is not a fossil, is not extinct, is walking around a shallow lagoon tonight. Then, deeper down, one of the least seen and least understood members of the family, the saw shark. The saw shark has, growing from its face, a long flattened snout studded with jagged teeth along both edges. It looks like someone welded a medieval weapon onto the front of a fish. Scientists believe, though nobody has ever conclusively filmed it, that the saw shark uses this saw to slash into schools of small prey, then feeds on whatever is stunned or injured. Somewhere in the deep water off the Australian northwest coast, in 2020, a remote submersible captured footage of an animal that made marine biologists stop breathing for a moment. It was a spiral. A shimmering, glassy spiral of thin, ribbony body coiled into a helix roughly 40 meters across. That is longer than most whales. Longer than a blue whale from head to tail. and it was drifting through the deep, alive, moving. Its name is the siphonophore. And here is what makes it stranger than almost anything else you have seen so far in this investigation. The siphonophore is not a single organism. It is a colony. Each of the beads strung along that 40-meter body is an individual animal called a zooid. There can be thousands of them in one siphonophore. Each zooid is genetically identical to the others, cloned from a founder cell, and each has specialized into a specific role. Some zooids exist only to swim, contracting in unison like a distributed propulsion system. Others exist only to reproduce. Others produce tentacles armed with stinging cells dedicated to capturing prey. Others form the mouth. Others form the digestive tract. Individually, none of them can survive alone. Together, they behave and function as a single, extremely long organism. The siphonophore is related to jellyfish. Its stinging cells are more than powerful enough to paralyze small fish, and in some species, to inflict serious pain on humans. But because it drifts softly and slowly at depth, most humans will never encounter one. Almost every siphonophore ever seen by science has been filmed by submersibles or documented by diving expeditions in deep water. Consider what you are actually looking at. An animal that solved the problem of specialization the way we solved it in cities. Different individuals doing different jobs. A brain-like coordination without any single brain in charge. Millions of years before humans invented the assembly line or the concept of division of labor, some soft-bodied creatures in the deep sea already had it running as their basic operating system. Then come back to shallower water and to something more familiar in shape, but stranger in behavior. South African coast. Summer months, warm current, murky green water. Every year, without fail, something extraordinary happens along the Eastern Cape. Hundreds of thousands of squid gather in the same shallow zone for a single purpose: to spawn. The locals call them chaka. Scientifically, they are Loligoreinaudii, the Cape Hope squid, and the mass gathering is known as the annual squid run. Male chaka squid arrive first. They cluster near the seabed at dawn and compete for the attention of females with color displays, choreographed movement, and open aggression. The mating itself is fast and complicated. Females then lay long, gelatinous strands of eggs, anchoring them to the seafloor in fields that can cover hundreds of square meters. The embryos are transparent enough that you can watch the tiny squid inside developing in real time. But the squid run is not a safe party, because the same aggregation attracts everything else. Ragged-toothed sharks lurk on the edges of the school. Seals patrol the shallows. Birds strike from above. The chaka have no shell, no venom, and no armor. Their only defense is a cloud of black ink and a jet propulsion escape system. And here is the detail from this event that has quietly shocked marine biologists filming it in the last decade. The chaka eat each other, not by accident, not as a rare, freakish incident. Documented footage now shows squid systematically capturing, immobilizing, and consuming other squid, sometimes still mating individuals, inside the aggregation itself. Cannibalism among cephalopods was long known, but the scale and matter-of-factness of it during the squid run reshaped how researchers understand this event. It is not just a mating gathering. It is a mating gathering that partly feeds on its own participants. When darkness falls and diver lights sweep across the reef, another feature of the squid comes out. Red Sea off the Egyptian coast. Late morning, the water above a shallow seagrass meadow is thick with light. A large gray shape moves through the field, slow and deliberate, its muscular snout plowing through the grass like a grazing cow through pasture. It stops, rises to the surface, takes a breath, sinks back down. This is a dugong. Is the last surviving member of an ancient family of marine mammals that once included the massive Steller sea cow, hunted to extinction in the 18th century within 30 years of its discovery by Europeans. The dugong grows up to 3 meters long. Adults can weigh as much as several grown men combined. Is the only mammal in the sea whose entire diet is plants. Everything else in the ocean built itself around eating other animals. The dugong quietly opted out. For millions of years, its ancestors returned to the water from land, kept their air-breathing lungs, and became grazers of underwater fields. Nobody has ever called the dugong beautiful. Its face is blunt. Its skin is thick and gray, often scratched and scarred. Its posture in the water is slow and heavy. And yet, if you have grown up near a coastline where these animals live, you have grown up with stories about them. Because for centuries, sailors reported sightings in warm coastal waters of large aquatic beings that surfaced periodically, held their upper bodies briefly upright, and vanished. In the salt spray and fatigue of long voyages, some of these sailors reported the beings as women. Half fish, half human. The scientific consensus now points to dugongs and to their Atlantic cousins, the manatees, as one of the most plausible biological origins of the mermaid legend. A large, breathing, silent mammal rising through a shaft of sunlight in the shallows would have been enough. The rest was hunger, exhaustion, and the human imagination doing what it does best. There is something quietly powerful about that. The strangest, ugliest, gentlest grazer in the ocean, mistaken by sailors for a myth. A creature the sea invented long before we did, and a creature that is now in trouble. Seagrass meadows around the world are being destroyed by coastal development, pollution, and warming water. The dugong feeds on almost nothing else. Its slow reproduction rate, a single calf per pregnancy, years apart, means the population cannot rebound quickly. Local extinctions have already happened. More are on the way. The pattern under all of this is what deserves to sit with you when you close this video. Every creature you have met in the last 40 minutes has been the ocean's answer to a question. The numbfish's question was how to kill without teeth. The answer was electricity. The frogfish's question was how to catch fish without speed. The answer was a rod. The stonefish's question was how not to be eaten. The answer was venom in its skin. The leafy sea dragon's question was how to disappear. The answer was to grow leaves. The siphonophores' question was how to be big without a skeleton. The answer was to become thousands of individuals working as one. The squid's question was how to spawn in the open. The answer, apparently, was to sometimes eat each other while doing it. The ocean has been asking these questions and finding answers for around 4 billion years. In every direction, at every depth, in every temperature range, life kept solving the problem of survival with a solution that looks, from land, like an act of imagination. Which is why, if you take one thing away from this investigation, take this. When we picture aliens, when we picture creatures on some distant world that developed under a strange sun, we mostly picture minor variations on Earth animals. Insects with extra legs. Reptiles with more teeth. Vaguely humanoid, vaguely tentacled beings. The truest aliens are already here. They live in our ocean. They evolved on the same planet as we did, and they are still, after everything we know, mostly a mystery. If you made it to the end of this video, hit like and subscribe. Long-form investigations like this only exist because a small number of people go all the way through. And I want to know something in the comments. Which of these creatures unsettled you the most? Which one felt least like an